You're watching the Talking Mini, and I'm your host CJ. Welcome back to another album ranking. And today's album ranking was voted on by the people of this channel, or just people that seen this and voted for Amon Amarth. We'll be doing that from now on. I thought it would be a great idea, and I've been trying to get that up. The polls up. I did. I recently got. Yeah. So this is voted on by the people of YouTube. So yeah, and I've wanted to rank Amon Amarth again for a very long time and haven't got the chance to. Now I do with their brand new album on the list. So, 12 studio albums. I like 11 of them. There's one that I did not give a score because, well, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I've never liked this album. And yeah, getting into it. Number 12, Surtur Rising from 2011. This is a follow up to Twilight of the Thunder God from 2008, and well, it's last. I don't like talking shit on albums, but I'm going to reluctantly here. This album, I don't like it at all. Nothing hits. Honestly, everything drags, and this album makes me want to listen to their other releases. This album is a huge dud with nothing redeeming about it. It's my least favorite, and yeah, I know a lot of people rave about this one, but I just don't like this. I just completely find this album to be very draggy and boring, and really there's no like song that I really like from it. It's basically just yeah, newer Amon Amarth, um but even newer Amon Amarth is better than this. Like it's their worst album in my opinion. I know some other people have different opinions on this, but it's my least favorite album. I don't like talking shit on albums, but yeah, it's a ranking, and I have to share my opinion when I rank a band's discography. So yeah, number 11 is a controversial one, which is Fate of Norns from 2004. I know this one will be a little bit controversial to put at number 11. The biggest downside of this album is Pursuit of Vikings because the other songs are just not as good, and it kind of shows. This album is good, but it would be not my normal choice when listening to Amon Amarth. This album is a transitional piece from the old to new sound. You could hear both on the album where they kind of like slow this album down when the first like four were kind of like fast and like like kind of black metal type vocals and like Swedish death metal tone. This is more of like that like newer refined thing, but they still have that old style in there. But it's basically a transitional piece. Overall, not one I usually go back to. 8.8 out of 10. Still very good. Still listenable. Still fun to listen to. Favorite song from Fate of Norns is Pursuit of Vikings. Of course, the GOAT track from this one. But, like I said before, don't find myself listening to this album quite often. And, yeah, I know a lot of people will be kind of offended by that for putting Fate of Norns this low. But, yeah. Number 10 is usually people's least favorite, which is The Crusher from 2001. This album is good. It's not perfect. The lack of standout songs is apparent, especially the back half of the album. There's a lot of riffs that just blend together and not enough hard-hitting parts. The album would not be my first choice when deciding what Amon Amarth album to listen to. 9 out of 10. My favorite song from The Crusher is Risen from the Sea. Just an absolute banger track. But, yeah, the back half of the album is kind of dull and kind of void of anything that's really interesting. And basically is just a drag. But the first half of the album is really good and is reminiscent of some of their two earlier albums. Number 9 is their brand new record from 2022, The Great Heathen Army from 2022. There's not a bad song on this album, but it is not good. It's not as good as the ones above this. This album and number 8 were close, and it was very hard to decide, but 9 is a good spot for this one. Number 8 just barely beat it out. There really isn't any songs that stand out to me and grab me in, but the album flow is really good and the riffs are classically chuggy. It sounds like that classic chuggy Amon Amarth sound that they're well known for, which isn't my favorite, actually. This is the first perfect album on the list with a 10 out of 10. My favorite song is Dawn of Norseman. Very good song as well. I don't know what song I liked when I reviewed it the first time in 2022. I did review this album in full on my channel. Gotta scroll the list up. We got number 8 is Deceiver of the Gods from 2013. A huge step up from Zerda Rising. This one was the one after that dud, honestly. After the dud, modern, clean production of Amon Amarth that has great riffs and underrated songs. The album is enjoyable, and I have no problem with it. Deceiver is a fine album, far better than the previous, and definitely is worth your time. Songs like Deceiver of the Gods, the title track, Father of the Wolves, Shapeshifter, Under Siege, and Warriors of the North make this a fantastic listen. Oh, and I must mention my favorite song from this album, Blood Eagle. Yeah, if you don't know what Blood Eagle is, it's a huge thing that the Vikings used to do to basically any trader that they came across. It was a great addition to this album and one of my favorite Amon Amarth songs. It's a 10 out of 10, perfect release. Love the album Deceiver of the Gods. I know a lot of people don't like that album so much, but I'm one of them that actually likes that album quite a bit. Number 7, With Odin on Our Side from 2006. First modern sounding album in my opinion, as this album has everything that makes Amon Amarth so big and their new clean sound. The riffs are more interesting than the previous and overall a better release. This album is truly a great death metal release and is perfect in my opinion, but falls short of the ones above it. 10 out of 10. My favorite song is Prediction of Warfare. It's absolutely just brutal sounding song. Fantastic song. Number 6 is kind of another controversial one to have this low, which is Twilight of the Thunder God from 2008. Yeah, this isn't Amon Amarth's most successful album and one that made them known to mainstream fans, basically shot them into the mainstream. I found nothing to really gripe about this one. The vocals are more crisp than they were before. The songs are more melodic, and the tone of the guitar is more crisp, but I prefer the ones higher on the list. The songs in this album just huge, with people still talking about the title track and Guardians of Asgard. There's 2 songs that if you mention Amon Amarth, people will mention because they're so legendary. 10 out of 10. My favorite song is Free Will Sacrifice, a song that not many people talk about, but is very good and has some very good riffage to it and very good vocals, just everything about it. Number 5 is one of the ones I don't own on CD, like Zerda Rising, this one moved up on the list heavily from last time. Berserker from 2019. Literally listening to this album, I appreciate it more now than I did the first time around. The songs in this album are amazing, and to think most discard this album is one of Amon Amarth's worst. Songs like Ironside, which is an absolute beast of a song, Raven's Flight, When Once Again We Can Set Our Sails, Crack the Sky, and Fafner's Gold. Absolutely great stuff. Makes the album a must listen. This album also sits rent-free in my workout playlist. Honestly, best album to listen to best album when you're lifting weights in the gym. Best album to listen to. 10 out of 10. The best song is Shield Wall. Absolutely a fantastic track. And one of my favorite Amon Amarth songs to listen to. Number 4 is the one that used to be number 1. Jom's Viking. The one that was my introduction to Amon Amarth and was my favorite for the longest time. So many memorable and epic songs in this album. It was the hardest album to rank because this album was so good. But now I prefer the ones higher on the list. I still go back to this one when I'm wanting Amon Amarth. But it's got to go here because, well, I just prefer the other three that are higher than this. 10 out of 10, my favorite song is The Wanderer. Just absolutely a fantastic song. I know a lot of people would probably put Raise Your Horns or First Kill or something like that. But I like Wanderer. John's Viking. I forgot to show it, but yeah, John's Viking. One of their best albums, but yeah, I like 3 albums more. Number 3 is controversial to have this high, which is The Avenger from 1999, or their second studio record, their sophomore release. I don't know why people talk so much shit on this album. Like, I get it, it's not like modern Amon Amarth, but it's still good. I've always liked this album, to the shock of most fans, as this album is regarded as one of their worst. The album only has 7 songs, but all of them are good. None of them are bad. Riffs are super interesting and memorable, unlike the album released after that, The Crusher. My favorite song on this album is Last with Pagan Blood. Just absolutely fantastic song there. Check that one out. Check out any of these songs off this album. This album is an absolute banger, honestly. I know a lot of people discard this one as like one of their bottom tier albums, but this is for me, this is definitely S tier. Like, I have 3 on S tier, and they would all be 1, 2, and 3. Number 2 is Versus the World from 2002. And you already know what number 1 is. Yeah, just absolutely number 1 is the best album they've ever done. This is where the modern sound starts to show. This album is more melodic than their previous works, but still has that hard-hitting ferocity of the ones released before it. Most of this album is memorable and something I would go back to. The vocals are not as painful sounding as the previous releases, as the vocals on those albums sound like just destroying your voice, honestly. Just pain, just absolutely painful sounding recording of those. It sounds like, yeah. Overall, more intense than the previous 3. 10 out of 10. My favorite song off of Versus the World is Versus the World, the title track. Just an absolute banger song. Yeah, amazing listen. I know that this one would probably fall high on a lot of people's list, mine too. And number 1 is the debut album, 1 Cent from the Golden Hall from 1998. I know this one may be a little bit controversial to have on this to have this album this high on the list, but I've always enjoyed this album. This truly is one of the best debuts from a band. I have a huge soft spot for the production on this album. The sound of this album is like no other. It's just straight up, just grimy, awful sounding death metal, and basically reminds me of stuff from Edge of Sanity in the early Entombed stuff, and just the old Swedish death metal. The songs are some of my favorites and some of the most inspired out there for this band. It's basically the raw debut from this band. The favorite song on this album and favorite song from Amon Amarth is Victoria's March. Just absolutely recommend this album to any people like that have listened to the newer stuff. Go back to the older stuff and check this one out. You will not regret it. Or if you don't like old school Swedish death metal, you probably will regret it, but yeah. So that's how I rank Amon Amarth. Hopefully everybody liked it. This is what you guys voted for. I probably will. I'm going to put another poll up after this video is uploaded, so stay tuned for that. Go check that out. And yeah, I will see everyone in the next video.